right, good morning everybody. My name is Sierra. I'm one of the tribal health dietitians. I'm here with Kiowa today. Kiowa, what are we making?
We're having tacos.
Tacos, that's right. So we're making tacos, but we're not just making any kind of tacos. We're going to be making garbanzo bean or chickpea tacos. So you might see these in the store. I got the low sodium kind. Try and reduce that sodium intake, which is good for our heart and our blood pressure. But chickpeas are these delicious, or garbanzo beans, they have two names. They're these delicious beans. They're kind of like a nice light brown color. And we're going to be using that as the basis for our tacos today instead of like ground beef. So they are going to be vegetarian tacos. We're also going to be making a little bit of sour cream topping to go on top with our Greek yogurt, trying to use up the very last of it. Kiowa is going to be helping me out with some chopping. So we're going to chop up a little bit of lettuce and tomato and black olives to go on top. Okay, so for these ones, Kiowa, I'll just show you. We're going to cut off the end, so you won't keep this part. But just kind of chop them like this size, you know, because they're going to go on top of the tacos, like this. Okay. I'll get you a bowl, too. You can put it in a bowl. Okay. So I'm going to prepare the chickpeas over here. So first of all, we have our oven set to 425 degrees. We're going to bake our chickpeas. However, you can also do this recipe by just sauteing them in a skillet on the stovetop. So either way. So to season our chickpeas, first we're going to do a little bit of salt. A couple of pinches. Then we're going to do garlic powder. So I'm just eyeballing it, but if you wanted to measure it out, it'd be anywhere between like 1.5 to 2 tablespoons for each seasoning. Onion powder. We're going to do a little bit of chili powder. And paprika. So, can you get this one open? So garbanzo beans or chickpeas, they're an awesome food to eat. First of all, because beans in general have a lot of fiber, so it'll help make sure your intestines and your stomach are healthy. You're staying full for longer when you eat enough fiber. It also can reduce cholesterol levels. Eating enough fiber can help reduce your cholesterol. And I just added a little bit of olive oil to these, and I'm just going to mix it up. Chickpeas also are a good source of magnesium, which making sure you get enough magnesium can prevent headaches. Also, folate. So folate is a B vitamin, and it's especially important for women to eat enough folate because, especially when they're pregnant or thinking about becoming pregnant, because not getting enough folate can lead to your baby getting spina bifida, when they're born with the spine on the outside, not inside the skin. So making sure you get enough folate, it'll help with your nervous system, as well as, you know, having a healthy baby. And as well as iron. Chickpeas also are a good source of iron, and iron is excellent to eat because it makes sure it ensures that we're not tired, we're not fatigued, right? Not getting enough iron can lead to anemia, and that's when we get tired and cranky and fatigued. So we want to make sure we get enough iron in our diet too. And another reason that I wanted to do this recipe is because April, there's Earth Day, it's springtime, a lot of flowers and wild edible plants are going to be popping up. So I wanted this month to focus on um, nutrition recipes and nutrition topics that have to do with being environmentally friendly or sustainable. So once I get these chickpeas mixed together, I'm going to pour them just in this baking dish, and then we'll pop them in the oven for 20 minutes. I'll put the timer for 10 minutes. I'll stir them halfway through. But I wanted to focus on environmentally friendly nutrition, sustainable nutrition, since it's springtime and it's going to be Earth Day soon. And so when I talk about sustainable nutrition or environmentally friendly nutrition, what I'm really talking about is nutrition that, we're getting our food in a way that doesn't harm the environment. It's socially just, so farmers and farm workers and people involved in our food system, growing and harvesting and producing and manufacturing our food, they're treated equitably, and they get fair wages, and they're working in safe working conditions, as well as economically viable, right? We want our farmers and our farm workers and everyone involved in making food to be able to live and have a wage and make money, make a profit. So that's things that I consider when I look at environmentally friendly or sustainable nutrition. And it's important to think about that, especially with the food system, because if we think about climate change and greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, our food system is a big contributor to climate change. So globally, food production is responsible for 30% of the greenhouse gases that are released into the atmosphere. And food production, so the growing and the harvesting of food, is the biggest contributor of greenhouse gases. That's followed by transporting food, so moving it from place to place. That's second. And then the last in the food system contributor to greenhouse gas, or the third biggest, is food retail. But really, the focus is on food production. And if we break down greenhouse gas emissions by food groups, livestock production, so red meats like beef, pork, lamb, any grain-fed livestock, those are really the biggest contributors of greenhouse gas emissions in our food system. So those grain-fed livestock, and they globally, looking at all of the livestock that is produced, they emit way more greenhouse gases than the entire transportation sector. So it's huge. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing chickpea tacos today instead of ground beef tacos. There's also, following environmentally friendly nutrition, trying to practice that. It also really falls in line with a lot of the nutrition messages that we put out for general, just like health. So, for example, this was back in 2015, the World Health Organization, they labeled red meats and processed meats as carcinogens, as cancer-causing food. So, and they found enough evidence, especially for processed meats, that they labeled it the same level of carcinogen or cancer-causing risk as cigarettes. And so processed meats, those are meats that undergo some sort of change, like either through salting, curing, fermenting, smoking, and they do this to enhance the flavor or to preserve the food. So examples are like hot dogs, sausages, salami, beef jerky, canned meats. So those are the processed meats that are more associated with like colon cancer, stomach cancer, pancreatic cancer. Um, and so we want to try and limit those kinds of foods in our diet. It's okay to have them every once in a while, right? Like everything in moderation. But those meats have the strongest evidence for cancer, in addition to their greenhouse gas emissions during the production of those food items. Okay. And the second, so we look at the food groups, the biggest contributors to climate change are greenhouse gas emitters. So red meat and processed meats is number one. The second are highly processed junk foods and oils. So things like chips, sweets, just junk food in general. Because those foods are they go through a lot of processing, right? They don't look like their original, food ingredient that they came from. Like if you look at a Cheeto, it doesn't look anything like wheat, so processing those foods to make them what they are, it produces a lot of greenhouse gases. And in general, nutrition tips, we want to try and limit those foods anyways, right? Because they're not very good for our health and they're not very good for the environment. So in general, the foods that are the lowest in emitting greenhouse gases when they're produced are fruits and vegetables, whole grains, things like that, nuts and beans and seeds. Those foods that we should really eat more of for our health are actually better for the environment too. So shifting towards a plant-based diet could be an option if you're interested in trying to be more environmentally friendly. And when I say plant-based diet, what I mean is the majority of the food you eat should come from plants. It doesn't mean you can never eat meat. You have to go vegan or vegetarian. I'm not saying that, because I enjoy meat and dairy. I think it can be part of a healthy diet. It's just limiting it, right? We don't want to eat too much, because first of all, it's not necessarily great for our health, but also the detriment that it causes to the environment and how it contributes to climate change. A lot of times people say, oh, eat local, because, the less that your food has to travel, the less of an environmental impact it will have. Well, that is a good tip. I think eating local is great especially for promoting, local economy, supporting local farmers. Absolutely. However, if we're really looking at environmental friendliness and greenhouse gas contributions, how our food is grown and produced has a bigger impact on climate change than how far our food travels. So you're going to have a better impact on the environment if you try and reduce how much meat and dairy you eat, compared to if you just strictly eat a local diet. So one sort of like trend that came around was Meatless Monday, so trying to not eat meat one day out of the week, so avoiding meat products one day out of the week, and that would have a bigger impact on reducing, impacts of climate change than strictly following a local diet. Okay, so I'm getting the sauce ready right now. I'm just putting the last of our Greek yogurt in with this. I diced up 1 jalapeno and about a half a bunch of cilantro. Just going to mix that together. And this is just plain Greek yogurt. It kind of tastes like sour cream, but it has more calcium than sour cream. Yeah, so I was thinking maybe we could just chop it up, the cheese into chunks, because it's going to go on top of the tacos. I don't think we have a cheese shredder yet. I was looking for one and I asked for one to be ordered. Yeah, we just need to order it. Yeah. So we'll get one. We just don't have one right now. You have one? Yeah. Okay, and so with our tacos, we're going to be doing corn tortillas. You can eat them how they are. Oops, that's my beans. Time to mix them up. So corn tortillas, you can eat them as they are. However, I find that if you try and eat it, they kind of break a lot. So either heat them up in the microwave. But what I like to do is just kind of like fold them over and stick them on the grate inside the oven, and just kind of stick them on one of the grates, kind of stick it right on there and let it kind of harden and like cook a little bit. So I'm going to try and do that with some of them, and it kind of makes it form into like that taco shape. Like, as you can see, I'm like wiggling this one, it's already cracking. So you got to heat them up so they don't crack and crumble all over the place. And another great thing about chickpeas is just like most legumes, they're nitrogen fixers. So they put nitrogen and nutrients back into the soil. And I was reading an article the other day that was talking about more farmers are starting to include chickpeas or garbanzo beans into their crop rotation because it helps with soil health, but also there's more of a demand nowadays for chickpeas and garbanzo beans. More people like trying to eat hummus or, different products, chickpea noodles. I mean, there's so many different things nowadays, different food products that include chickpeas. So there's definitely a higher demand, which is good for soil health, at least for the farmers. So I guess one other thing, I wanted to talk about with the livestock and, red meat being the biggest red meat and processed meat being the biggest contributors in the food system to greenhouse gases. You also have to consider, a lot of those animals are grain fed, and changing the land, the habitat in order to grow food to feed those animals, that can cause some, environmental damage as well. So there's just many things to consider when looking at the food system and how, our modern day practices contribute to climate change. So I'm going to start putting in some of our tortillas just on the grate. So I stick them. So you just kind of stick them so they kind of fold around the little pole. But you gotta make sure you don't do it for too long because they can easily burn. I've burned so many doing it this way. You just gotta keep an eye on them. Tacos. And olives are super healthy too. They have a lot of healthy fat in them. Monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat. Kind of think of like olive oil, how olive oil is always promoted as one of those super healthy oils. Well, olive oil comes from olives, so olives are also a healthy option. The only thing with olives though really is you got to drain and rinse them. So rinsing your olives off, or even the beans too, the garbanzo beans, I drained and rinsed those too. And rinsing your food that comes in cans can reduce the sodium or salt content by 40%. So it gets rid of a lot of that sodium or salt that they add in. Okay. Should we do 2 for him?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you come in, that's how you hear it.
For his breakfast. Okay, so we'll do like a little bit of cheese in there. Do a little bit of black olives. You're gonna do tomato, yeah. Do some tomato. Awesome. Okay. We need a little bit of lettuce. Perfect. Okay, we'll do a little bit of the sauce on top. All right, you want to take that? Okay, and this is what our final product looks like.